The clatter of forks against ceramic was the only sound for a long moment after Chloe spoke, a silence that stretched and hummed with an unsettling energy. My pasta, usually a source of simple comfort, tasted suddenly of ash and dread. She had just finished a breathless monologue about digital nomads and passive income streams, her eyes bright with a feverish excitement I had only ever seen when she binge-watched true crime documentaries. Then came the words, delivered with a casual lightness that belied their seismic impact. I am quitting my job next month. I am going to become a full-time influencer. And you, my love, can support us. The air left my lungs in a silent whoosh. My mind, usually a well-organized filing cabinet, scattered into 1,000 fluttering notes. Chloe, with her marketing degree and stable position at a mid-sized ad agency, had always been the practical one, the planner, the one who meticulously budgeted our shared expenses. My own income, steady but modest, covered our rent and most of the groceries, leaving just enough for occasional date nights and a trickle into our shared savings account. The idea of supporting both of us on my salary alone, let alone her venturing into the volatile world of content creation, felt like a joke delivered without a punchline, a dark absurdity. My fork clinked against the plate, an involuntary tremor running through my hand. I looked up, meeting her gaze, searching for a hint of humor, a telltale mischievous glint. There was none, only unwavering conviction. She elaborated, her voice now a rapid-fire torrent of ideas and projections. She had been researching for months, she explained, late nights spent poring over YouTube tutorials and Instagram success stories. The market was ripe, she insisted, for someone with her unique blend of aesthetic sensibility and engaging personality. She envisioned a channel dedicated to sustainable living, minimalist fashion, and plant-based cooking. Our apartment, with its carefully curated vintage finds and thriving collection of potted greenery, would be the perfect backdrop. We could even film a segment on my woodworking hobby, she offered, her hand reaching across the table to squeeze mine, seemingly oblivious to the paralysis that had seized me. My hobby, a quiet escape, suddenly felt like a potential prop, a commodity. The following weeks were a strange blend of surreal optimism from Chloe and mounting anxiety from my end. Her resignation letter was submitted, a decisive act that solidified her intent. My attempts at gentle dissuasion, at suggesting a part-time transition or building a following while still employed, were met with unwavering confidence. "You have to commit," she would say, tapping her phone screen, showing me analytics charts from other creators, proof of concept. The universe rewards boldness. I found myself nodding, mumbling agreements, feeling a growing knot of dread tighten in my stomach. The universe, I thought, also rewards a steady paycheck and health insurance. Our savings, once a source of comfort, now felt like a rapidly dwindling emergency fund, a buffer against the inevitable crash. Chloe transformed our small living room into a makeshift studio. A ring light arrived, a monstrous halo of artificial sun. Softboxes unfolded like alien flowers, casting a sterile glow across our usually warm space. Tripods, microphones, and various backdrops cluttered corners. My carefully arranged bookshelves became the subject of her meticulous styling, their contents rearranged for optimal visual appeal. I came home from my accounting job, my brain still buzzing with numbers and spreadsheets, to find her humming happily, editing footage on her laptop, surrounded by cables and equipment. She would show me snippets of her videos, her voice chirpy and enthusiastic, her on-screen persona radiating an effortless charm that was undeniably hers, yet somehow amplified, polished, almost a different person. I would offer hesitant feedback, suggestions on lighting or audio, and she would listen patiently, but her vision was clear, unyielding. The first few months were a blur of frenetic activity. Chloe was up before dawn, planning content, researching trends, filming. She spent hours curating her Instagram feed, perfecting captions, engaging with comments. She learned new editing software, taught herself SEO, and even took an online course on personal branding. Her dedication was admirable, truly. I watched her pour every ounce of her energy into this new venture, fueled by an unwavering belief that success was just around the corner. She talked about brand deals and affiliate marketing, about collaborations with other creators, about monetizing her passion. Our conversations became almost entirely about her channel, its growth, its metrics, its potential. My day, my work, my concerns felt increasingly sidelined, insignificant. My own life began to shrink. The occasional dinner out, the movie tickets, the weekend trips we used to plan, all quietly faded from our routine. Chloe suggested we cancel our streaming subscriptions. She needed the mental clarity to focus on content, she said. My gym membership felt like an unnecessary luxury. I started packing my lunch every day, meticulously calculating every grocery purchase. The shared savings account, once a joint endeavor, became primarily my contribution, its balance barely holding steady. I felt a constant, low-level hum of anxiety, a tight band around my chest. Sleep became elusive, my mind replaying financial scenarios, estimating future expenses, wrestling with a growing sense of injustice. Was this what partnership meant? Was this what love demanded? One evening, after a particularly exhausting day at work, I found myself staring at a pile of unpaid bills. The electricity bill was higher than usual, a direct result of Chloe's constant equipment usage and extended editing sessions. I felt a surge of cold anger, a sensation alien to our usually harmonious life. Chloe was in the living room, recording a segment about sustainable kitchen swaps, her voice bright and articulate. I waited until she finished, the ring light still glaring. When she finally turned it off, the sudden dimness of the room felt oppressive. "Chloe," I began, my voice tighter than I intended, "we need to talk about money." She looked at me, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. I laid out the numbers, the dwindling savings, the rising costs, my stretched budget. I reminded her of our initial agreement, or rather, my silent capitulation, and how this was becoming unsustainable. Her enthusiasm, for the first time, seemed to deflate slightly. She sighed, pushing a stray hair from her face. She understood, she said, but these things take time. Success is not overnight. We just needed to push through this initial period. She promised a big break was coming. A brand had expressed interest in a sponsored post. It was a small step, she admitted, but a step nonetheless. The brand deal turned out to be for a relatively obscure eco-friendly cleaning product, offering a modest payment that barely covered a week's worth of groceries. Chloe, however, treated it like a major victory, a validation of her efforts. She worked tirelessly on the sponsored video, perfecting every shot, every transition. I watched her, a mix of admiration for her tenacity and despair for our financial situation warring within me. She was so close to her dream, she believed. Who was I to crush that hope? But the gnawing worry about our future, about my own career stagnation, about the quiet resentment festering in my heart, became a constant companion. My friends began to notice the change. Mark, my oldest friend, a pragmatic engineer, cornered me during our weekly pickup basketball game. "You look like you haven't slept in weeks," he observed, wiping sweat from his brow. "What's going on with you and Chloe? Is she really doing this full-time influencer thing?" I mumbled something vague about it being a transition period, about supporting her dreams. Mark just shook his head, a knowing look in his eyes. "Dreams are great," he said, "but someone has to pay the bills. Don't let her take advantage of your good nature, man." His words, though blunt, echoed my own unspoken fears, adding to the burden. I started taking on extra shifts at work, a few hours here and there, blurring the lines between my professional and personal life. My woodworking hobby, once a therapeutic outlet, gathered dust in the corner of our cramped spare room. There was no time, no energy, no mental space for it. My evenings were spent cooking budget-friendly meals, doing laundry, and quietly tidying around Chloe's expanding collection of props and equipment. I became a silent, efficient background support system, a stagehand for her unfolding drama. The joy in our relationship, the easy laughter and shared moments, began to erode, replaced by a strained politeness, a careful avoidance of difficult topics. Chloe continued to work relentlessly. Her follower count grew slowly, steadily, but monetizing that audience proved to be a far more challenging endeavor than she had anticipated. The algorithms were fickle, the competition fierce. Every small setback, every dip in engagement would send her into a spiral of self-doubt, quickly followed by renewed determination. I would find her late at night, staring blankly at her analytics dashboard, her face illuminated by the cold blue light of her laptop screen, a picture of weary frustration. In those moments, I would feel a pang of pity, a resurgence of the old love that had first drawn me to her. But then the morning would come, and the cycle would repeat, and the financial pressure would once again tighten its grip around my throat. One particularly bad month, a sudden car repair coupled with a hefty increase in our rent pushed us past the brink. Our emergency savings, once a respectable sum, were completely depleted. I stared at the bank statement, the numbers a stark testament to our precarious situation. My own paycheck, usually sufficient, now felt like a sieve. Chloe had been talking about investing in new camera equipment, a professional-grade lens she was convinced would elevate her content to the next level. She had found a payment plan, she explained, excited, as if this was the solution to our problems. The argument that followed was not a gradual escalation, but an abrupt explosion, a dam breaking. We stood in the middle of our living room, the familiar space feeling suddenly hostile, alien. I raised my voice, something I rarely did, the accumulated stress and resentment finally finding an outlet. Where is the money going to come from, Chloe? Do you even see what is happening to us? I am working myself to exhaustion, barely sleeping, and you want to buy a new lens. Are you serious? My voice cracked with a bitterness I hadn't known I possessed. Chloe's face, usually so animated, went pale. She retaliated, her own voice sharp with defensive anger. You don't understand, she cried. This is my career. This is my future. You promised to support me. You are supposed to believe in me. This is not a hobby. This is my dream. Her words twisted in my gut. My promise, I realized, had been to support us, not to fund a venture that was systematically dismantling our shared life. I saw a flash of the old Chloe in her eyes, the one who fought fiercely for what she believed in, but it was overshadowed by a desperate edge, a fear that perhaps even she was beginning to feel the weight of her gamble. You call this supporting us? I shot back, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. I am paying for everything, Chloe, every single bill. Our savings are gone. I haven't been able to put anything away for my own future. My career is stagnating because I am too tired to do anything but survive. This isn't a partnership. This is me funding your dream, and I am drowning. The words hung in the air, heavy and unforgiving. The ring light, standing silent and accusatory in the corner, seemed to mock us. She stared at me, her chest heaving. Tears welled in her eyes, not the soft, gentle tears I had seen before, but tears of frustration, of feeling misunderstood, of perhaps a nascent realization of the chasm that had opened between us. You don't care about my happiness, do you? She whispered, her voice barely audible. You just want me to go back to a job I hate. You just want me to be small. The accusation stung, cutting deeper than any financial quarrel. It was an attack on my character, on the very foundation of my love for her. I walked away then, unable to continue the conversation. The exhaustion was too profound, the emotional toll too heavy. I retreated to the small spare room, the one where my woodworking tools lay dormant, and sat on the floor, my head in my hands. The silence was deafening, broken only by the muffled sounds of Chloe crying in the living room. That night, sleep offered no escape. My mind churned, replaying the argument, weighing choices, contemplating a future that now seemed impossibly bleak. I realized with a stark clarity that the relationship, as it stood, was unsustainable. My resentment had grown into an impenetrable wall, and her dream, once a shared aspiration, had become a wedge driving us apart. The next morning, a heavy quiet pervaded our apartment. Chloe had left a note on the kitchen counter. It was short, a single sentence. I am going to my sister's for a few days. I think we both need space. I crumpled the note in my hand. Space. It was a word that felt both necessary and terrifying. The apartment, stripped of her constant presence, felt unnervingly empty, echoing with the silence of unspoken words and unresolved conflict. I walked through the living room, past the ring light and the tripods, symbols of her ambition that now felt like monuments to our shared failure. In her absence, a strange sense of clarity began to emerge. The constant pressure, the low-grade anxiety began to lift. I ate a meal I cooked for myself, not worrying about the budget or whether it would be aesthetically pleasing enough for her content. I tidied the apartment, not to make space for her equipment, but simply to reclaim our home. I even dusted my woodworking tools, running my fingers over the smooth, cool metal, a ghost of a smile playing on my lips. I understood now that supporting Chloe's dream had come at the expense of my own life, my own dreams, my own financial and emotional well-being. My love for her was still there, a complex, wounded thing, but it was no longer enough to justify this self-immolation. When Chloe returned, 3 days later, the air was still thick with unresolved tension. She looked tired, her eyes red-rimmed, but there was a new stillness about her. We sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where she had first announced her decision, a lifetime ago it seemed. There was no pasta this time, just 2 mugs of tea steaming gently between us. I spoke first, my voice calm, resolute. "Chloe," I said, "I cannot do this anymore. I cannot be your sole financial support while you pursue your influencing career. It is destroying me, and it is destroying us." She listened, her gaze fixed on her tea mug, her expression unreadable. I laid out my terms, not as demands but as statements of necessity. She needed to get a part-time job at the very least to contribute to the household expenses. Or, if her influencing income genuinely started to pick up, she needed to show clear, consistent proof of its financial viability. I needed to see a concrete plan, not just optimistic projections. And I needed her to understand the toll this had taken on me, on my sense of self, on our relationship. My career, my savings, my hobbies, my mental health had all been sacrificed. She finally looked up, her eyes wet but clear. "I heard you," she said, her voice soft, raw. "My sister made me see things differently. She reminded me about partnership, about fairness. She saw how stressed you were. She saw me, I think. I got so caught up in the dream, in the chase, that I stopped seeing you. I stopped seeing us." A tear traced a path down her cheek. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I am so sorry for what I put you through." It was not an easy conversation. There were more tears, more difficult truths exchanged. She admitted that the reality of influencing was far harder, far more demanding, and less lucrative than she had imagined. The curated online persona often masked a crushing pressure to perform, to constantly create, to battle algorithms and fickle audiences. She missed the stability, the camaraderie of her old job, even the mundane aspects of it. The constant performance, the relentless self-promotion, had begun to feel hollow, even for her. The next few months were a slow, arduous process of rebuilding. Chloe swallowed her pride and started applying for part-time work. It wasn't her dream job, not by a long shot, but it provided a steady income, a tangible contribution to our shared life. She scaled back her influencing efforts, focusing on fewer, higher-quality posts, driven more by passion than by the relentless pursuit of virality. The ring light and softboxes were packed away, stored in the spare room. Our living room began to feel like our living room again, not a set. We started going on dates again, small, inexpensive ones at first, but they were filled with genuine laughter, with real conversation, not just about content strategy or follower counts. I began to rediscover my woodworking, the quiet satisfaction of shaping wood with my hands returning. Chloe would sometimes join me, watching, offering observations, a gentle appreciation for my craft, not as potential content, but as part of who I was. The resentment, though not entirely gone, began to recede, replaced by a fragile hope. Our relationship was fundamentally altered. The implicit trust, the assumption of shared goals, had been deeply wounded. It would take time, perhaps years, to fully heal. But a new foundation was being laid, one built on more explicit communication, on a deeper understanding of boundaries and individual needs within a partnership. We learned that love, while powerful, could not exist in a vacuum, nor could it be a shield against practical realities. It required effort, sacrifice, but those sacrifices needed to be reciprocal, balanced, and freely given, not extracted under duress. Chloe still posted her videos, but the frenetic energy had been replaced by a quiet sincerity. Her channel grew slowly, organically, finding an audience that appreciated her authentic voice. She started collaborating with local sustainability initiatives, finding a sense of purpose beyond online metrics. She even featured one of my small wooden sculptures in a video once, a subtle, unforced integration that felt like a quiet acknowledgement, a peace offering, a bridge. I had learned a profound lesson about self-preservation. My willingness to sacrifice for someone I loved was immense, but it had a limit. My identity, my financial security, my mental well-being were not endlessly renewable resources to be poured into another's ambition without replenishment. The line between supportive partner and enabler was a fine one, easily blurred by love and expectation. I understood now the importance of advocating for myself, of drawing boundaries, of communicating needs even when it felt difficult, even when it risked confrontation. Our future remained uncertain, as all futures are, but we faced it together, not as one person towing the other, but as two individuals walking side by side, acknowledging each other's dreams, respecting each other's needs, and sharing the weight of life's practicalities. The ghost of Chloe's announcement still occasionally whispered in the quiet corners of my mind, a stark reminder of how quickly a dream, however well-intentioned, could become a burden, and how easily love could curdle into resentment if not nurtured with honesty and mutual respect. But now, when I looked at Chloe, I saw not just the aspiring influencer, but the woman who had learned, who was trying, and who, finally, saw me too. And that, I realized, was a starting point, a genuine beginning all over again.